7 minutes. That is the problem with the Whitaker case. Because according to the evidence, the man convicted of Dana Whitaker's murder had already driven away. 7 minutes before her back door opened, on a quiet street in Briarwood, Oregon. Police arrived at the Whitaker home just after midnight. Inside the kitchen, they found 41-year-old Dana Whitaker lying on the floor. She had been stabbed multiple times. At first, investigators believed the explanation was obvious. A rejected lover, a crime of passion, case closed. But when I reviewed the file years later, one detail didn't make sense. This is Rafe Quinn. In 2019, I was asked to review a closed homicide case from Briarwood, Oregon. A woman named Dana Whitaker had been murdered in her home in 2016. Her neighbor, a 26-year-old man named Evan Hale, had been convicted of the crime. The case seemed straightforward: secret relationship, obsession, rejection, violence. But when I examined the investigative timeline, I found a gap, a small window between when the suspect left and when the victim's house registered movement. Police had noted it, but never explained it, and that gap troubled me. Briarwood is the kind of town people move to for safety: quiet streets, good schools, neighbors who know each other's names. The Whitaker family lived on Maple Ridge Drive, a cul-de-sac with 8 homes, modest houses, well-kept lawns, the kind of street where kids ride bikes and families wave to each other. Dana Whitaker had lived there for 12 years. She was known as friendly, helpful, the kind of neighbor who'd water your plants while you were away, organize block parties, remember birthdays. But beneath that exterior, people close to her said she'd been struggling. Dana was 41 when she died, married to Daniel Whitaker for 16 years. 2 children, ages 13 and 9. She'd been a graphic designer before she had kids. Left her career to raise them. Never went back. Friends said she seemed content, but some noticed she'd become quieter over the years, less social. Her husband Daniel worked as a corporate consultant, traveled frequently, sometimes gone 3 or 4 days a week. Dana managed everything at home: kids, house, schedules, alone most of the time. One friend told investigators Dana had mentioned feeling invisible, like she'd disappeared into routines, like nobody really saw her anymore. Evan Hale lived 2 houses down. 26 years old, he'd moved back in with his father after losing his job, struggling to find direction. Quiet, kept to himself mostly. Neighbors described him as polite but isolated. He'd been living there about 8 months when he and Dana started talking. It began casually, conversations over the fence, small talk while getting mail, walking dogs at the same time. Nothing unusual, just neighbors being neighborly. But over time, those conversations became more frequent. Dana would see Evan outside and stop to chat. They'd talk for 10, 15, 20 minutes about nothing important. Weather, neighborhood stuff, life. But for Evan, those conversations meant something. He'd been lonely, directionless. And Dana gave him attention, made him feel heard. For Dana, the attention felt good too. It reminded her she existed outside of being a wife and mother, that someone found her interesting, worth talking to. In cases like this, the danger rarely begins with violence. It begins with attention, and for someone who feels invisible, attention can feel dangerously close to love. By late 2015, their conversations had become more personal. They'd started texting, not often, but regularly. Dana would message him during the day. Evan would respond quickly. They'd talk about their days, their frustrations, things they couldn't say to other people. For Evan, this felt like connection, like something meaningful. For Dana, it was an escape, a distraction from feeling unseen. In early 2016, their relationship crossed a line. They started meeting privately. Weekday afternoons when Daniel was traveling, kids at school, they'd go for drives, meet at coffee shops in neighboring towns, talk for hours. It wasn't physical, at least not initially, but it was intimate. emotional, secret, and that secrecy created intensity neither of them expected. Evan believed what they had was real, believed Dana felt the same way he did, that eventually she'd leave her husband, that they'd be together. Dana knew that wasn't possible. She'd never intended for things to go this far. She had a family, a life. This was just something that made her feel less alone. But Evan didn't see it that way. He saw a future. Most obsessive relationships follow the same pattern. One person moves on, the other never does. And that imbalance can turn something ordinary into something dangerous. By March 2016, Dana decided to end it. She told Evan they couldn't keep doing this, that it was wrong, that she loved her family, that what they had couldn't continue. Evan didn't take it well. He asked her to reconsider, said they could figure it out, said what they had was too important to just end. Dana said no, it was over. She asked him to respect that, to stop contacting her, to move on. But Evan couldn't over the next few weeks. He sent messages, dozens of them, asking her to talk, saying he couldn't accept this. Dana stopped responding, but Evan kept trying. Neighbors started noticing him outside more often, standing on his porch, looking toward Dana's house. One neighbor mentioned seeing his car parked on the street late at night, just sitting there, engine off, nobody inside. But the next morning it would be gone. Dana told a close friend she was worried, said Evan wasn't handling the breakup well, said she felt like he was watching her. The friend asked if she'd told her husband. Dana said no, she couldn't. It would destroy everything. The friend suggested going to police. Dana said she didn't want to escalate things. Thought maybe Evan would move on eventually. Thought keeping it quiet was safer. On the 12th of April, 2016, Daniel Whitaker left for a business trip. 3-day conference in Seattle. Kids went to school that morning. Dana stayed home. Around 10:45 a.m., neighbors reported seeing Evan Hale's car pull into the Whitaker driveway. Security footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera confirmed it. Evan got out, walked to the front door, knocked. Dana opened it. They spoke briefly. Then Evan went inside. The door closed. At 11:34 a.m., the same camera showed Evan's car leaving the driveway. He drove down the street, turned left at the corner, disappeared from view. That was the last confirmed sighting of Evan at the Whitaker home that morning. At 12:17 p.m., Dana's 13-year-old daughter came home from school. Early dismissal day, she entered through the front door, found her mother in the kitchen, lying on the floor, not moving, blood everywhere. She screamed, ran to a neighbor's house. The neighbor called 911. Police arrived within minutes, found Dana Whitaker deceased. Multiple stab wounds, kitchen knife on the floor nearby. Forensic analysis later confirmed it was from Dana's own kitchen. No signs of forced entry, no signs of robbery, nothing taken, just violence and death. What makes crimes like this unsettling isn't the violence, it is the setting. Quiet streets, ordinary homes, places where nothing like this is supposed to happen. Detectives immediately focused on Evan Hale. Neighbors mentioned his obsession, his car at the house that morning, his inability to accept the breakup. When police went to his house, Evan was there, calm, cooperative, said he'd gone to Dana's house to talk, said they'd argued, said she'd told him to leave, so he did. Left around 11:30, went home, stayed there the rest of the day. He seemed surprised when they told him Dana was dead. Police searched his house, found his phone. Text messages showed the obsession. Dozens of unanswered messages to Dana, pleading, desperate. They found a journal, pages about Dana, about their relationship, about how much he loved her, how he couldn't lose her, how he'd do anything to make her understand. Forensic evidence was processed. DNA under Dana's fingernails, blood on Evan's clothing, scratches on his arms. He said they'd argued, she'd pushed him. He'd grabbed her wrists. That is how the DNA got there. The blood was his own. From the scratches, he said he'd left. Didn't hurt her. Didn't know what happened after he drove away. But investigators didn't believe him. The evidence suggested a confrontation that escalated, an argument that turned violent, a rejection he couldn't accept. Evan Hale was arrested, charged with first-degree murder. Trial happened in early 2017. Prosecution presented the obsession, the rejected relationship, the presence at the house, the physical evidence. Defense argued Evan left before anything happened, that someone else must have come after. But there was no evidence of anyone else. Jury convicted him. Life sentence. Case closed. For most people, that was the end. Justice served. Dangerous obsession led to murder. Young man couldn't handle rejection. Woman paid with her life. Simple, tragic, resolved. But when I reviewed the case file in 2019, I found something that troubled me. The timeline. Evan's car left at 11:34 a.m. Security footage confirmed it. But Dana's home security system recorded a motion sensor trigger on the back door at 11:41 a.m., 7 minutes after Evan left. The police report noted the trigger, but dismissed it. Assumed it was a system error. Or maybe Dana had stepped outside briefly. No follow-up investigation, no explanation. I requested the full security system logs. The backdoor sensor had been triggered only 3 times that day. Once at 7:52 a.m. when Daniel left for his trip. Once at 8:14 a.m. when the kids left for school. And once at 11:41 a.m., 7 minutes after Evan Hale's car was recorded leaving the street. The front door sensor showed Evan entering at 10:47 a.m., leaving at 11:33 a.m. Consistent with the camera footage, but the backdoor activity didn't match. I also found something else in the investigative notes. A neighbor 2 houses over mentioned seeing an unfamiliar car parked on the adjacent street that morning. Dark sedan, didn't recognize it. Thought maybe it was a contractor. Never saw who was driving. Mentioned it to police during canvassing. Officer noted it, but didn't follow up. No description of the driver, no plate number. Just a detail that went nowhere. I spoke to Dana's friend, the one she'd confided in about Evan. She said Dana had mentioned something else. Said she felt like someone had been in her house when she wasn't home. Small things moved. A drawer left open she knew she'd closed. A gate unlatched. She thought maybe she was being paranoid. Thought maybe it was stress. But she'd mentioned it twice. Once in late March, once in early April. Days before she died. I also reviewed Daniel Whitaker's timeline. He'd left for Seattle at 7:50 a.m. on the 12th of April. Flight records confirmed. He boarded a plane at 9:35 a.m., landed in Seattle at 11:18 a.m., checked into his hotel at 12:42 p.m., attended the conference that afternoon. Cell phone records and witness statements confirmed his presence in Seattle. He had an airtight alibi, no question. But here is what I couldn't reconcile. If Evan left at 11:34 a.m. and Dana was found dead at 12:17 p.m., that leaves a 43-minute window during which the backdoor sensor triggered at 11:41 a.m., 7 minutes after Evan left. The medical examiner estimated time of death between 11:30 a.m. and 12 p.m., consistent with either timeline. But the sensor suggests activity after Evan departed. Police assumed the sensor was irrelevant. Maybe Dana stepped outside. Maybe the system glitched. But I checked the system's maintenance records. No reported errors, no false triggers. The system was reliable, and if Dana had stepped outside, why? In the middle of an argument with Evan, minutes before her death, why go to the back door? I requested crime scene photos. Examined the kitchen, the positioning of Donna's body, the blood patterns, the knife. Forensic reports indicated a struggle, defensive wounds, but also signs of surprise. Like the attack came suddenly, from someone she wasn't facing, someone she didn't expect. Evan Hale is still serving his sentence, still maintains he left before anything happened, still says someone else must have been there. His appeals have all been denied. Evidence against him was strong, motive was clear. Physical evidence was present. Conviction stands, but the 7-minute gap remains unexplained. The motion sensor triggered after he left. The unfamiliar car, nobody identified. The feeling Dana had that someone had been in her house. Small details, maybe meaningless, maybe not. I don't know if Evan Hale killed Dana Whitaker. The evidence says he did. The jury believed he did. He had motive, he had opportunity, he had obsession. But he also had a timeline that doesn't perfectly align. And that troubles me. Because if someone else was there, they've never been identified, never been questioned, never been considered. And if Evan didn't do it, then whoever triggered that backdoor sensor 7 minutes after he left got away with murder, while a young man sits in prison for a crime he might not have committed. Evan Hale is still serving a life sentence for Dana Whitaker's murder. The case was closed years ago, but one detail in the file remains unexplained. A backdoor motion sensor triggered at 11:41 a.m., 7 minutes after Evan Hale's car left the street. Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe someone else walked through that door. This is Midnight Ledger, where closed cases sometimes leave the most important questions unanswered.